I have done crazy things. I have run with the bulls in Pamplona. I have climbed Kilimanjaro. I have dived with great white sharks in South Africa. All of the crazy things that one can do, it's on my list. Our single closest competitor is owned by the Wall Street Journal.
It made me realize that it wasn't my job that paid me. It was real estate that was the launchpad for my success. What made you think about flipping properties?
It took me about 3.5 seconds to remove that website and then a further 3.5 seconds to erase all the digital content from that. At the time, we were in front of ourselves.
Jason Hayes, digital real estate pioneer who launched a distressed stock portal in 2008 to buy homes at pennies on the dollar. He scaled luxuryproperty.com across 42 countries. Is here to teach us how to spot opportunity in any crisis and scale businesses globally.
My grandfather would say, always leave people wanting to do business with you twice. They don't have to like you.
Is that a way to get into entrepreneurship? You're saying don't go part-time, go full-time, load up on the skills, work for a company?
Quite simply, that digital mindset. We were the first company to have a website where you could book student accommodation online. I think it's important that we all look after each other and kindness wins.
In 2008, the US housing market crashed. It collapsed. And Jason built a digital portal for distressed stock, turning it into an investment vehicle that bought homes at pennies on the dollar. Jason Hayes talks and builds. But before we dive deeper, I wanted to personally thank you all for listening and joining this growing community. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It genuinely helps us grow and bring more incredible guests and conversations. And more importantly, if you find value in this conversation today, make sure you share it with at least one person who's working on a side hustle, perhaps. It might save them months of mistakes. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be with you this afternoon.
The honor is all mine. I wanted to start this by saying I'm a huge fan of you and your work. But before we jump into that, I wanted to start by saying that when I worked in the bank, I remember working there and I had this document in front of me. I started looking at it and it said 100% finance for bank staff. I decided to take that loan while my friends were taking car loans, use that loan to buy a property. At the time, at this place called JBR, which was brand new.
Right.
And held that for 7 years, flipped it, made my first money. It made me realize that it wasn't my job that paid me. It was real estate that was the launchpad for my success. So I want to go back to that time in 2008. What made you think about flipping properties?
Well, I suppose if I took you back a couple of years before then,
sure.
I'd quite successfully scaled and built a very, very large real estate investment company specializing in student accommodation. And I sold that company in October 2007, my daughter's birthday, the 30th of October 2007. Now, some may say
wow,
that my timing was perfect and I'm somehow a genius to get the timing quite right. But at the time, I was very cognizant of the fact that the UK real estate market was overheating. And when the offer came through to sell the group of companies, I actually thought, gosh, this might be a really good time to actually lock in that capital growth and that profit. I structured something with KPMG and I went offshore as part of a very, very clever tax planning initiative. And in the United States, when I started propertyandhomes.com, a brand that I still have, it was very much as a digital platform. So it was
So 1 second, let's go back to the beginning. How old were you when you first started, before you got to the exit, the first company?
Oh my gosh, I was at university. So I went up to university and bought a student house, rented it to my rugby playing housemate. So we all played rugby together. First mistake, never mix business and pleasure. They never paid the rent on time. It was a disaster.
That's really important rule for success.
Yeah, very much so. And then I scaled that gently whilst at university.
So sorry, you rented a room and then re-rented it out to someone else, or did you buy it?
No, I bought the property.
Okay.
So I took my student loans and took my savings, went to a bank, achieved what's called a MyRisk mortgage, which was a very, very mortgage interest relief at source mortgage for first-time buyers. Something similar is happening over here at the moment. And rented out the 5 other rooms in the house.
But where were you staying when you rented out?
In the 6th room.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the sixth room, and then that produced a surplus of revenue, which I used to buy the second property. I might have been a little less economical with the truth around whether or not I had another property when I was talking to the banks. And of course, when you're building a business, sometimes, so long as there's no harm or no foul, sometimes it's fine to sort of to bend the rules. You shouldn't break them, but to bend them. By the time I'd left university, I had 10 student houses.
I don't know anyone in university in my time that had 10 properties.
It was a very clever model. It worked incredibly well. It was something that worked for me, and then from there I scaled that business to 5,000 student bed spaces,
Wow.
with the backing of KPMG and Bank of Scotland. At the time, it was the Tony Blair, and he might not enjoy the greatest of legacies, but the what he did for higher education in the United Kingdom was that most students had to go up to university, and therefore, of course, they needed somewhere to live. So we quite simply just provided a fully worked up service offering for that.
Would you like go and buy like a ready house or develop something from scratch?
We started just buying regular properties, very, very cheap, affordable homes, and then we would redevelop them and make them fit for purpose.
And like, do you come from like an entrepreneurial family? Like, what happened in your childhood that led you to think that you could do something like this? Like,
I think, well, I'm not quite too sure. I mean, my father was with the UN, and then from there went into private practice. So quite entrepreneurial. Or I think it's something that you are born with. I think it's something that's there, but it's also that need to succeed. So, by example, I was very cognizant of the fact that I wouldn't make a great doctor, nor indeed a dentist or a lawyer or something, or an engineer. I'm not minded to do that. So I sort of
like, what, did something happen in your childhood where someone stopped you and said, "Wait, you're actually," because look, where you say you have 10 properties in being in university. I was in university. I thought about buying a nice car, going out with my friends, the normal stuff. So, did something happen in your childhood that made you realize that you were set up for entrepreneurial stuff or entrepreneurship?
No, I don't think so. I genuinely think I never gave much thought to. I was brought up in Sri Lanka, and I don't think I ever gave much thought as to what the future would look like. I was always too busy living in the present. Even now, I don't tend to think too much about what the future looks like. I'm very much about living and enjoying the present. They say that life isn't a dress rehearsal. So for me, it's very much, even with Jack and Molly, who are now both at university, Jack's message from me when he went to the University of California in Santa Barbara, he's just graduated, but when he went, the message was, don't get thrown out. And that was it. It wasn't a case of
A rule book.
it wasn't a case of make sure you become a lawyer or make sure you do something else. A more case of make the most of that experience and thoroughly enjoy it. I'm also a great believer in when something works, stick to it. I sort of happened upon that requirement for undergraduates to want really, really high quality accommodation with a full pastoral care package.
So you were in Sri Lanka and then you leave at what age to go
16.
to university?
Yeah, to go to do A levels in the UK and then to university. Yeah.
And that's where you got this idea about helping them get housing.
Yeah, because there's the quality of housing was so poor, so it was so incredibly poor. So my concept was quite simply, if you just provided something that was of a good standards, then of course you could charge more and you would always you'd always be successful at renting all of your bed spaces. When we scaled that, we took it to a different level. So back in 1996, 97, 98. We were doing all-inclusive accommodation, electricity, gas, water, then Wi-Fi when the internet came in, then insurance and everything else that came with it. So a fully wrapped up sort of full-service offering, shall we say.
And how old were you when you sold to KPMG, your first company, or using KPMG?
I sold using KPMG. I was 34.
When you had your first
Exit.
exit, and you said also there was a birthday.
It's my daughter's birthday.
Your daughter's birthday.
So I always remember the day because it was Molly's. It was Molly's birthday.
Wow.
So it was one of those where, at the time, the exit strategy didn't exist. I was playing golf with a chap who basically made an approach on the golf course. We would like to buy your company. And that was following something that happened in the Sunday Times. They'd done this sort of, rich list thing, and I'd been featured on it. And this chap invited me for a game of golf, and that's where it came from. And at the time, I was like, gosh, why? No, I've got no interest. And then he mentioned the figure, and I thought, gosh, I have every interest in it. And we actually didn't, in the end, sell to them. We sold to a hedge fund in London. But
Is this public? Is the figure public news?
I don't think so. Possibly. Maybe if you look hard enough.
If you want this podcast to be the place where you share that figure,
I'm a wonderfully private person. Before coming to Dubai, you would never have heard of me. I'm a wonderfully private person, so I don't.
I completely agree. You have a huge brand, luxury property, and this is the first time I meet you. So I've seen your brand many times in Dubai. To talk about, me, I was holding on to my property for about 7 years and then decided to sell it. It takes me back to the point where, for you, like, how did the decision come to sell? What is that turning point?
Well, at the time, I felt overexposed. So at the time, I was very conscious that if the market moved by 10 or 15 or 20%, I would be exposed. And I was something that I'm by nature very conservative by nature. You mentioned that you might not have heard of me. Well, that's because when I was selling the business, they mentioned key man issues. So, without Jason, we don't have anything. So with both of my recent, with propertyandhomes.com and with this company, I've made sure that I've got a full C-suite of executives who run the business, and I'm very much behind the strategy. Knowing your own business and knowing when to consider an exit, or indeed when to not consider an exit, is entirely a gut instinct. It's you that's reading the market. It's you that's understanding the business. Nobody will understand your business better than you do. Nobody at all. Any amount of analysis by cleverer people than myself will throw up all sorts of scenarios, but it's always, from me, I've learned to trust my instincts and trust my
You're saying you felt exposed because probably over leveraged.
Yes.
And you said a move 10-15% could get you, exposed, and that's kind of so. You sold your first company. What did you do? Did you just go play golf all day, or?
I did a very complex tax structure with the Isle of Man, and I took 2 years out in Barbados. We have a home there. I would scuba dive in the morning and play golf in the afternoon. I would play golf in the afternoon and scuba dive in the morning. It was the most fun for about 3 months. I was completely bored. I bought a beautiful development. It was called Kyra House, and we developed 17 beachfront homes whilst being retired in inverted.
In Barbados?
In Barbados, in inverted.
Nice.
Common. And it was, it's really interesting. I think as well, I learnt from that experience that I'm at my most happiest when I'm busy and being challenged, and that, at the age of 35, one can't think about just playing golf and scuba diving and this, that, and the other.
What are you going to do when you're 70 then, right?
Well, this is the point, isn't it? And I sort of, you think about what makes you happy, and obviously for me, it's Andrea and Jack and Molly, but it's also the challenges and opportunities of owning, scaling, and running a business. Now, if you'd sort of seen me last Thursday when we had a very complex transaction fall over because of a complex vendor who thinks his home possibly is worth more than it is, I would probably have sold you my business for 3.5 dirhams. It was that's so frustrating. But you realise, I think, as well, that so you have to have something that gets you up in the morning.
I was reading this book called 38 Letters by John D. Rockefeller. And he had a son, and this is in the 1900s. He wrote to his son 38 letters at different intervals, and then they put it together into a book. And this is kind of his knowledge passing on to his son. And one of those letters spoke in detail about doing meaningful work.
Yep.
And this is a billionaire, the richest guy to ever live back in the time. He's like Elon or Bezos today or more. And he said, basically, you have to do meaningful work.
Yep.
My father used to run a contracting company. He, I remember him, he was in his 70s. We told him to stop working. His home became the office. There would be people coming in and out all day. He died at 84. But to him, it was, if he didn't work one day, he would just be sitting down miserable.
Yep. And I suppose it's one's interpretation of work as well, isn't it? It's not as if, I chuckle because it's not as if we're chopping down trees, nor are we digging holes in the road or sort of, doing manual labour. It's, for me, it's that sense of endeavour. I have done crazy things. I have run with the bulls in Pamplona. I have climbed Kilimanjaro. I have dived with great white sharks in South Africa. I have all of the crazy things that one can do. It's probably, I've either done it or it's on my list. And that's probably something to do with that sense of risk, possibly, for somebody who's hugely conservative, but also that sense of adventure and that sense of endeavour with work, and with, trying to sort of scale our platform and doing what we're doing. And our single closest competitor is owned by the Wall Street Journal.
Wow.
Now, I can't... and everyone keeps saying to me, you can't compete with these guys. And I'm chuckling, thinking, well, I'm not necessarily competing with them. I'm just nibbling at their ankles at the moment. Maybe by the time I'm getting to retirement age, I might have sort of got to nibbling at their knees, shall we say. But it's that sense of sort of endeavour, and that's what sort of energizes me and causes me to sort of enjoy life. I sometimes wonder whether I'm wired incorrectly, but then
I see you having a lot of risk taking. I would say entrepreneurship. I would put it under one word, entrepreneurship. But then I see the strategy part, and it's the strategy part that to me speaks to the part that you don't want to be out there on the front. So speaking to your strategy, and I'll get back to strategy in a minute, but when I was launching my healthy food brand, we called it Under 500, simply because every dish was under 500 calories. My co-founder was a branding guy, super smart. But I remember when I broke the news to my friends, they said, like, who the hell puts a number in a name? And some of them even laughed at me. 7 years later, took that brand 7 countries and sold it to Kidopi Kitchens. So going back to the strategy in you, you had a website called propertyandhomes.com. And then your wife came to you and said, use luxuryhomes.com. How did that get you to change your strategy?
Because my wife is the boss. We've been married for 23 years, and I think she's the clever one in the family. My daughter's following in her footsteps. She's just received her... she's on the dean's list at university.
Wow.
She's doing something with Yale at the moment. Andrea's very clever. A woman's intuition is, if you could bottle that.
Andrea's the wife.
And my wife, yeah. If you could bottle that, you'd probably make a fortune. When we relocated here, I was insistent it should be propertyandhomes.com.
It's in 2016.
In 2016.
And you had the website already, right?
Yes, indeed.
Propertyandhomes.com.
And we have a stable of digital assets. We've lots and lots of incredible digital brands. It's what we do. And Andrew was insistent on luxuryproperty.com, insistent upon it. And I was rather nervous because propertyandhomes.com is incredibly well established, had very, very good digital footprint, and already we'd done, I don't know, maybe the best part of 6 or 8 years work on that. But that was very US centric. But Andrea was like, look, it's Dubai. And she was quite insistent, so much so that she acquired luxuryproperty.ae.
Smart.
From there, we acquired luxuryproperty.france.
Just lock them all out.
Lock them all of them, from
there's luxury everywhere,
to India to wherever. So, and and then obviously, we sort of unlocked luxuryproperty.com in terms of we trademarked, registered that, and then everything points to that domain. It was Andrea's brand. It was her sort of, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And I suppose they say behind every great chap there's an even greater woman. And on the branding side, that was definitively her baby. It was very, very much a case of,
We'll pull up the branding on the screen for people to
thank
see
you.
on the
Thank you.
video.
So I think on the world's finest homes, that was my wife. The sort of all even now, and we've got hundreds of people who work for us, but even now she will still have the sort of final say in terms of what our sort of digital positioning looks like. Our podcast, the luxury podcast, my wife. So I'm sat here sort of saying, well, I'm a genius, but actually I'm not. It's her.
So you now have luxuryproperty.com in France and other places, about 42 countries, right?
Yeah.
In the time in 2020 we had the corona, and I remember there was lockdown. We couldn't move at all. I remember feeling like, what are we going to do? We have a deal we just signed in Erbil. So we were building a branch, a fully fledged branch in Erbil, and it was in all of our minds that we needed to fly there to actually help them build the branch. But the franchisee was in full coordination to build the branch. What was missing was everything was on lockdown. And I remember sitting on my laptop, sweating, working, not knowing if this is going to work, trying to online train all those chefs in Erbil. If you can build a restaurant in another country through your laptop, then it'll redesign so many things in our life. And that was because back then there was no work from home. This is the beginning of work from home. And it gets me to think about, what is the thing that got you to think differently to actually scale your business to 42 countries and to book luxury, but have your home in Dubai?
Quite simply, that digital mindset. So going all the way back to 1995, I'm showing my age here. We were the first company to have a website where you could book student accommodation online. And for me, I've always had that mindset of the world is digital. With propertyandhomes.com, with the work that we were doing there, we were doing DocuSign, as you would call it now, in an environment where the Americans use fax machines.
Wait, so you're saying a student there can go online and book his place in 95?
95, yeah.
Wow.
So they would go up to university labs and they would go onto the website and they would book their places. With luxuryproperty.com, it was definitively a case of we were incredibly digital. And even now, all of our training is all done on an e-learning system. If people are talking to each other in the office, I often get the sense that we're doing something wrong. So we're so incredibly digitalized around the business. When 2020 happened, I panicked. I had a very, very bad day. I don't have many bad days, but I clearly remember when that happened, thinking we may have just lost the business here in Dubai. I can't see how we're going to get out of this. And then fight or flight, then something kicked in, didn't it? And we all and we were so incredibly fortunate to be living here in this incredible country where we turned it around in less than 30 days. And from there, we've been on a rocket ship journey ever since, haven't we, in many respects? But at the time leading up to that sort of digital mindset probably comes from my quest for transparency. If you have a client who's looking to buy or sell real estate, you need to be transparent through that entire process. Here in Dubai, we're very fortunate with the data that can be provided from the land department, with our marketing and with our approach.
Correct.
So if you have that transparency, and if that forms the sort of if that forms at the center of your mindset around the business, that all aspects of everyone in the business can see the entire business, then you're able to to scale and go from there. So our digital footprint back then enabled us to perform incredibly well through the pandemic, and then after the pandemic, we just got better. So, by example, pre-pandemic, we were doing video viewings with clients, using a little-known technology called Zoom, and then, of course, Zoom became the biggest thing on the planet. We've very much been in front of ourselves, and we often pride ourselves on that. But I think if you if you, no matter what industry you're in, there has to be that digitalization of what you're doing, and we couldn't have scaled if we didn't have that. We couldn't have achieved what we're still trying to achieve.
Jason, what is one principle that sticks with you that helps you scale your online business and your offline?
Always leave people wanting to do business with you twice. That sense of integrity, that sense of an organization is as good as its weakest member of staff. We've got 130, 140 members of the team, making sure everyone's aligned in terms of the values. So the values that I set need to transcend through the company at every point, not just at the transaction point, but it could be at the point of, the payments to our suppliers, to making sure that that's done in a cordial and efficient manner, on the conveyance and the legal side of doing the property transactions, making sure that you conduct yourself properly. So my grandfather would say, always leave people wanting to do business with you twice. They don't have to like you. I have a chap at the moment who thinks I've undersold his mansion. However, I'd undersold it so well that he's given me another property to sell. So basically there is that sort of mutual respect there, regardless of the fact that he thinks I might have undersold his home.
You speak about transparency a lot, and there's this whole world of digital assets called crypto. Has there ever been a crypto transaction that worked with luxury property? And tell me a little bit about it. How do you see crypto in general? Have you ever done any crypto transactions? What is your view?
I got into trouble in Dubai because I acquired bitcoindubai.com. I think I still own it, actually. And I started marketing.
And the website.
The website. I think I'm very sure we still own it. It may be worth a fortune now. We've been heavily involved in crypto on real estate transactions. Historically, the process would be the conversion of that digital currency into what I would call hard currency, and then the acquisition of real estate. In recent times, it's been the acquisition of real estate using stable coins like Bitcoin as an example to buy off-plan real estate.
So before they would change it to fiat and then buy with it. Now
right.
They just buy directly with
That's
it.
right.
But what is the difference? It's just transaction fees, right?
Yes, transaction fees. Yeah. So if you have if you have clients, so Bitcoin hit 120,000 2 days ago, and then it came back by a couple of points, and it's becoming the digital gold. That's the new phrase. I don't know if you've heard that phrase, but obviously gold is the sort of the stable reserve when things go wrong, and Bitcoin seems to be sort of as a consequence of the Trump administration, Bitcoin's achieving these sort of incredible figures. The number of clients who want to acquire real estate using Bitcoin is staggering.
Like what percentage would you say?
I'm going to say probably as much as 10% of our clients. And on the website, on the homepage of the website, there's a crypto link. You can click
So I can buy directly from luxury property now using Bitcoin?
Yeah.
And from any country, or does it matter?
From any country. Now, obviously, you have to comply with the UAE regulations.
You never told us, what was the trouble you got into? Or you almost got into?
I got a very lovely telephone call from a chap saying you can't sell real estate using crypto in Dubai. And it wasn't from the Dubai Land Department, with whom I enjoy incredible relationships. It was from an organisation I'd never heard of before. And I panicked, absolutely panicked. And I was busy sort of apologising. He said, "It's fine, Mr. Jason, don't worry. We're just saying you can't market the thing." It took me about 3.5 seconds to remove that website, and then a further 3.5 seconds to erase all the digital content from that. At the time, we were in front of ourselves. I think this could have been 2019 or 2020.
But today...
But now it's of the moment. I mean, now it's very, very much of the moment, and rightly so. And we have the new World Trade Center authority for crypto transactions here. The Dubai Land Department are regulating crypto transactions.
They're now doing the, I've seen this.
Tokenization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, in luxury, how many different things are there? What are things that people don't know about the luxury market? Like how many different segments in luxury are there and how do you break down your customers? And then my second question is, you said you have 130 people. What is the setup in each country, or is just everything in Dubai?
Everything's in Dubai, so everything's headquartered here, and then we've got affiliate offices in those countries.
Like partnerships.
Partnerships, basically, yeah. Across the company here, on the digitalization, crypto tokenization side of it, it's going to be huge. It's going to be absolutely huge. What the United Arab Emirates has very cleverly done is positioned itself as a safe haven for those who are motivated by digital currencies. And if you crypto is great. If one makes, say by example, you make $50,000 equivalent thereof profit in crypto, what exactly are you going to do with it? Because you have it locked in that sort of currency, and you might want to utilize that capital growth. So by sort of using tokenization or using crypto transactions and buying some physical real estate, you've opened up the world to the United Arab Emirates, and that's something that's going to be enormous. And I can see that getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's so incredibly well regulated. So you're not seeing the sort of nonsense and the horror stories that we would worry about. We did a transaction recently on a very, very large property at 130 million dirhams.
Oh, that's big.
And it was managed quite successfully through an escrow service over here. It was a crypto transaction.
Wow.
They took the wallet, they took the all of the funds came through, all of the funds came in for the Dubai Land Department fees, the brokerage fees and everything else, and it was all quite seamless. And
Wow.
in a regulatory framework that was world class. I mean, I haven't seen anything better anywhere else. I also don't think that could have been achieved in many other jurisdictions either. So that's definitively what the future looks like.
So rep offices in different countries that pull in, interest to Dubai, and then the transaction is made easy here because of regulation and, your
Yep.
team being here.
Yep.
So look, most of the people that watch this show are entrepreneurs or someone doing a 9 to 5 and thinking of one day starting their own thing. I would argue that becoming a real estate agent is also entrepreneurship because you learn to sell,
Yep.
you learn to position. What is your advice for that person that's thinking about joining real estate? Like how could he possibly, look at it, and how can he up his game knowing what you know?
Well, I think it's real estate as an activity has got quite a low barrier to entry, and therefore, as such, unfortunately, it's probably got quite a number of practitioners that are at a standard that's not acceptable, that's not good enough. Here we have 25,000 licensed real estate agents in Dubai. That figure will vary. That figure can be significantly greater if you include those that sort of possibly don't have the right licensing.
Right.
However, it's a very, very regulated framework and incredibly well run. And I'm not saying that because I know some of my friends at the DLD and RIA will be watching this, but it is incredibly well run. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, if you have an overriding urge to help people and provide advisory, and you are statistically minded and data driven, you'll actually be very, very good at real estate. The best real estate brokers, in my opinion, are the ones who can empathize.
Emotions.
Very much so. I'll go back to my grandfather. He will say, you can't pass comment on anybody till you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Till you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Yes.
He's a smart guy.
Till you've walked a mile in their shoes. And in many respects, that's real estate. I have a client.
Empathy, right?
Completely. I have a client at the moment who wants to buy a spectacular home and is worried about spending that amount of money on that spectacular home. And I've understood by asking the right questions what his reticence is. Why why is he so concerned? And he genuinely feels that Dubai is absolutely at the top of the market, that there's every chance that 2008 may repeat itself again. He's concerned by the geopolitical situations with the recent 12-day activity in Iran, and he's concerned by the Houthi rebels and Hezbollah and Hamas and all of these sort of horrible things that are happening in the world. And he's nervous about deploying his capital into a home. And by understanding the root cause of his nervousness, one's able to not sell to him. I don't want to sell to him. I just want to provide him with advisory for him to make his own decision as to whether or not he would like to proceed. A lot of people who are thinking about coming into real estate, the best real estate practitioners, in many respects, are those that have got transferable skills, life skills, experience, who maybe have been through the trials and tribulations of life, the good times.
So you're saying a low barrier of entry, but high empathy coming from experience in life.
Yes.
So I could be, I don't know, a barber that's really good with people and listening to people,
Yep.
and now I'm selling real estate on the side because I've learned,
Well, I don't want you to set it on the side. So I would need you to, the other major thing is that you treat it as a career. So at luxuryproperty.com, we've got continuing professional development. CPD is as important to us as the amount of transactions that you're writing. So long as you're continuing to expand your educational experiences and your professional development, then we're quite happy with you.
But you said first it was empathy. Now you're saying it's career development. How do you, which is the one to close? What do you need to close? You really need...
All of them.
Okay.
I believe. All of them. If you don't know the price of Bitcoin today,
Yeah.
how can you?
I'm completely.
If you don't know that what the Federal Reserve are going to do to interest rates, because the dirham is tied to the US dollar,
You wouldn't be able to empathize without the knowledge also, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And if you don't have that broad spectrum of experience, if you don't understand how our incredible golden visas work and how our residential routes to visa here.
Yeah, but now this guy is in like university. He's thinking about, okay, I want to become an entrepreneur, or I don't want to start my first job. I'd rather join into real estate. Like, I'll be honest with you. I met an Emirati guy, very smart, in the sense he went and booked a really cool Instagram name. I don't want to say it so to expose him, but he booked it and he said, I work in the civil service and I'm selling, and I got this deal to become a broker on the side. I go to an office, they don't make me pay anything, and they train me. And if I sell something, they take 20%. And to him, that was his way of learning for free and hopefully selling something to and then his digital presence, obviously he invested in it. He took him some time and he put some nice pictures and reels and he's pushing. He said he sold a couple of things already. Is that a way to get into entrepreneurship? You're saying don't go part-time, go full-time, load up on the skills, work for a company?
A really good question. I suppose my answer would be, and I can only speak for myself, if I'm doing something, I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. If I'm putting my name to something, I have to be the best at it. In order to be the best at it, I have to be fully committed to it. I have met part-time real estate agents, and I sincerely hope they're better at their full-time jobs, because as a part-time job, they're relying on maybe they're relying on their personality, maybe they're relying on their Instagram following, but there's no depth to their offer
and commitment.
And what happens is at the time of transaction, you get found out. So at the time of the conveyance, or at the time of a problem with an NOC, or at the time of something's not quite as transparent as one would have hoped, you get found out quite quickly. So for sure, there are easy wins for a number of practitioners who are doing it on a sort of part-time basis. But in many respects, it's the sort of the depth of offering that gets you sort of that longevity of service.
Great. So 25,000 brokers, 4% make all the sales. That's the statistic I have. All the sales come through 4%. So how does someone make a career out of something where the top 4% eat everything?
I don't agree with the stats. However, the most interesting statistic is that in the United States, most real estate brokers leave the industry after a year.
1 year.
After 1 year. So about 90% of real estate brokers leave the industry after 1 year. 95% leave after 2 years. It is a very, very tough industry.
Is it?
Very tough.
What is the toughest part about it?
I think probably the commission only roles, probably. So it's from that economic standpoint. And it's probably sort of your route to success. So if you're with a company that can generate good lead flow for you, that's got good systems, good protocols, and got, you know, a well-branded reputation, then your chance of success has grown immensely. If you have transferable skills, be that a second, third, fourth language, and you are incredibly driven, then of course you will do very, very well. For most, it is, and I say this without wishing to cause anyone any offense, but for some, if they weren't selling real estate, they may be selling second-hand cars. Such is the sort of the barrier to entry. The concept of it's easy. It's a tough industry, but when you win so incredibly big. So it's a tough
You
industry.
say when you win big, you win big.
Yeah, huge. So one transaction would be the equivalent of a annualized salary.
But how do you run a company? Let's, I want to dive into it and see. How do you run a company where it's transactional, but you have fixed, or you're saying, no, people don't get fixed, where you have fixed expenses as the office rent, online marketing.
Yeah, so which is met by the company. So obviously that's on our risk.
So how do you manage cash flows when you have variable income and fixed expenses?
With aplomb. How's that for a phrase? I have a very, very good CFO. I think in many respects you're looking at transactional performance across the team. A good quarter is when every member of the team has done a transaction. My approach differs greatly to a number of others. I'm actually never bothered by the figures, and please don't think me being flippant by this, but I'm always of the view that if everybody is selling or renting real estate in the company, we're going to be absolutely fine. It's for those that don't do that transaction in the quarter that one struggles, and that's when you sort of that's when you realize that despite all of your efforts, despite all of your lead flow and all of your training and all of everything that we do, they still haven't managed to produce revenue.
Yeah, but look, I have a little experience. I worked, about 10 years in banking. I've ran a business, one with 500 people, a family business, another, my brand with about 60 people that I took to many countries, a healthy food brand. And I always, look, this is just my analysis. And I think if there's 10 people, you have 1 or 2 people that are really good. The 1 and 2 do a lot of the work. The 7 people in the middle, they pay the taxes, I would say, or are the middle, the people that do the middle work. And then you have the bottom 1 or 2 people that always fail. And to me, I realized that the number 1 and number 2 usually leave to create their own companies. The guys in the 7, they stay or they move sideways to other companies. And the 1 and 2 always leave at the bottom. You're saying a good quarter for you is when everyone makes a sale.
I am a champagne socialist, definitively. But I am a self-proclaimed champagne socialist. I want to see everybody in the organization win. That's hugely important.
So you care about the last guy not leaving.
I care about the guy who's not writing the deal. I care about the guys who write the big deals. They know who they are. They don't need me, and they do incredibly well. They get all of the plaudits and they get all of the awards, and gosh, there's so many awards in Dubai, it's crazy. Yeah. I care about the guy who's new into the industry, who's trying to get his or her first transaction done, the practitioner who's been in the industry for a while and
slowed down somehow.
Something's slowed down, something's not quite worked. They're the ones where you have to sort of be mindful of what they're experiencing. We're a prop tech company that does real estate, but we're not. We're actually we're a human company where there's an awful lot of individuals involved, and you sort of if you get that empathy right, if you get that culture right, you'll still have people who leave you. Of course you will. You will still have people who bill incredible numbers, and then they go and work for another company, and then all of a sudden they don't realize why they're not billing those incredible numbers anymore, because they weren't quite cognizant enough of, they were being sort of
The full support system.
exactly, yeah, a full infrastructure to support them. So for me, it's very much, now I will have CEOs and sales directors and everybody else be like, oh no, it's all about results, results, results. But for me, it's very much my mindset throughout, and all of the team know this, is I just want each of you to be individually successful, and that success will have different parameters. For the gentleman who does his one-off plan deal that month, that if that's his barometer for success, and then you won't find anybody happier than myself. If his barometer for success is he needed to do 4, then of course that's where we need to look at that, and maybe a different approach to others. And maybe I'm not enough revenue focused or anything else, but for me, the business is only as good as its weakest member of staff.
That's very interesting. You always focus, from what you've said, you always focus on the smallest or the weakest link in the chain. And you think, if you say that if you fix that, then you kind of have...
Yep. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, I could play devil's advocate and say, but then the guy who's doing really well will get demotivated. That the chairman is sitting with...
It's really interesting. I had a chap who built some phenomenal figures, and he was upset because he didn't feel that he'd been recognised enough, and I found that as a characteristic very interesting, very, very interesting, because I derive my success from a number of different metrics, not necessarily just from somebody saying, hey, you're incredible, that's great. But definitively, when we get a Google review, to me, that's the highest
Those are
award
great, yeah.
that anybody can give. When that review comes into somebody who's maybe on a success plan or on a performance plan, I love it. I mean, absolutely, I genuinely love it. When a transaction comes through for somebody who, as you leave the office at sort of 1:45 and they're still there plowing through whatever it is that they're working on, when that deal happens for that gentleman or that lady, that means more than the huge deals. And that's just a mindset I have, I suppose.
Yeah, you're a huge underdog supporter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can see that. We spent about 30 minutes together, but I can see that
Yeah,
you always root for the small guy, the guy
Yeah.
that can make it but just needs a push.
Well, I'll go back to I'm having a fight with the owners of with the Wall Street Journal every day of my career right now. I get up and I'm sort of like, okay, today I'm going to make sure that we go after them, and so yeah, it's David and Goliath. I like that. You have to have that target.
You speak and you do luxury properties, and you say it's all about empathy. When you're doing luxury and you have high empathy, you sometimes also get very strange concierge requests. What is the weirdest one you got? And if you don't mind sharing it with us, and how did you deal with it?
I've had a number. Helicopters used to be a big thing. In Dubai, it's something that doesn't form part of our sort of mindset, really. His Highness has one, of course, but you don't helicopter around Dubai, and a number of our North American clients couldn't get their head around having to sort of travel 10 minutes from the Palm Jumeirah to the airport, So
they want a helicopter from the Palm to the airport.
Yeah, so helicopters was a big thing for a long, long time. The funniest one I've ever had was a submarine berth.
A submarine?
A submarine berth. And so when somebody asks for something silly of that nature, in many respects, it undermines their buying position. So in many respects, you think, well, I'm not quite too sure that this chap's a serious buyer. So
he said he wanted to buy a submarine or have a berth in a submarine?
This gentleman wanted a dock for his submarine. And at the time when it came through, he was buying a very, very beautiful home on the Palm Jumeirah, and he wanted a berth for a submarine. Now, as you may know, there are no private berths on the Palm Jumeirah for any boats, regardless of who you are.
I don't know anyone who has a submarine, so
But having done a little bit of research, the gentleman owned a submarine company.
wow.
So his request was definitively, in order. There wasn't anything
Park
wrong.
one outside my house.
There wasn't anything wrong with his thing. And when I met with him afterwards, I said, "You must forgive me. When you asked, I did think you were a bit crazy." And he was chuckling and he said, "No, I do." I said, I know that now." So I suppose they're the sort of bizarre requests that you get. I think with
Did he turn out to be a serious buyer? Did he buy?
he acquired from us. Yeah, he acquired. He didn't obviously park a submarine, but he did acquire from us. I think in many respects, it's I would like 25 subterranean or basement car parking spaces
In his house.
so you get requests of that nature, and you're like, okay, gosh, I can't do anything for you here, and you will show somebody a home with 10 or 12 car parking spaces, which is incredible. I mean, it's huge numbers. And then the reason they don't buy is there's not 25, and you're actually thinking, I'm not too sure you're a definitive buyer. I think you're a little bit. I think you might need a reality check here. So you do get these bizarre requests, but some of them aren't quite as bizarre as one might think. We had a gentleman call a Saudi client, very, very good friend, a good friend of mine now, who his daughter was going to university in Canada, and I got a telephone call. She was leaving on the Tuesday or something, and he wanted to buy something for her to move into because he didn't like the university hall's residence. And I was chuckling and thinking, I'm really good, but I'm not entirely sure. This was probably Thursday afternoon. I'm not entirely sure I can find you a property and acquire it in 3 days.
In 3 days, he wanted it.
Yeah, he wanted it. So I was like, okay, that'll take some.
Look, Jason, you've really given us value, but now we want to jump into the rapid fire round.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question. You can answer in one word, in one sentence. If you want to go longer, you can.
Got it.
Morning ritual, a shot of coffee or a morning run? Which one are you?
Oh, regrettably, I'm a former rugby player, allergic to running. Coffee.
Coffee.
Too much coffee.
What would be your dream hustle if you weren't in real estate?
I would like to have been a diplomat. I think I could probably fix a number of the world's problems.
I agree. You have empathy. Who is the founder that you admire the most and why?
Would it be a bit cheesy if I said His Highness here in the United Arab Emirates,
Sheikh Mohammed's my biggest inspiration. I've never said this before, but he's he's a founder of a city with his father and him, right?
Yeah. And I don't want to come across as being a bit sort of cheesy when I say that, but if you look at the Dubai Canal as an example, the largest infrastructure project in the world, greater than anything the Victorians achieved, under his stewardship, under his vision. If you look at Dubai, in general, and all that we're doing every single day. So if I were to say him, that's not in order for me to be sort of seen.
So His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum.
Yes.
Wow, great answer.
And the vision that he has, and then to take a vision and to deliver so seamlessly is quite unique.
I was working in the bank. They said they're going to make a canal in the desert and connect it to the sea. And I remember speaking to the guy that was one of the people doing the funding. And I'm like, that's not even true. And he was like, no, it's going to happen. Like, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And you see something like that, and and then you see the tallest tower, and then all these things start showing. It can't just be coincidence.
But in an environment of tolerance, in an environment of fair play.
And what is there? A sea and a desert, right?
Yeah.
If you really think about it.
Yeah.
It's really great branding, marketing, positioning.
Yeah.
I would, tick so many boxes there that
I would definitely have him on my board of directors.
I would love to have him. I would love to have him on this podcast.
Inshallah. One day.
Inshallah, one day. Okay, this is the last and final one. If you could give one piece of advice to your 19-year-old self, what would that be?
Gosh, don't panic. Don't panic. I think I'm, even now, I think I overthink, overanalyze. Sometimes you just need to take a deep breath. This too shall pass is a phrase that my wife uses all the time, and when things don't quite go according to plan. So I suppose if I was sat with my 19-year-old self, I would be like, don't panic, everything's going to be fine.
Jason, you've taken us through, pivotal moments to digital empires to building luxury property. Thank you so much for sharing. But before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, what is your word for people that watch this podcast and don't press the subscribe button?
Well, I think I'd rather you did subscribe. I think it's important that we all look after each other, and kindness wins. And in this case, kindness is subscribing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.